to go on this?
All set.
All right. So welcome everybody to the third of many to come CVTA tech meetings. Got a busy agenda today, so we'll jump right in. First,
Excuse me, Todd.
yes. Hey, Joe.
Can everybody hear Todd well? I can't hear you very well. Everybody saying yes?
Yes.
Must be me.
Yes.
I'll try to speak a little louder, Joe.
Never mind, I got it.
Okay. Very good. So first item of business is statement of recording virtual meetings. Chet.
Yes. 1 second. Let me make sure I can get it on the screen.
Chad, I don't think we need to actually read the statement regarding the virtual meetings because they were included in the packet.
That's correct. You can just reference it.
Okay, so has it been duly referenced? We're good to move forward?
I think so.
Okay, very good. Next item, roll call, certification of a quorum. Jeff?
Yes. I'll turn that over to Nicole, please.
Yes, I'll start doing the roll call for attendance. Town of Ashland, Miss Amos.
Here.
Charles City County, Miss Russell. Chesterfield County, Miss Smith.
Here.
Miss Walker.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Here.
Mr. Kilduff. Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas.
Here.
Mr. Flagg. Henrico County, Mr. Yor.
Here.
Miss Smidler. New Kent County, Miss Leduc. I think she's here. Kelly, can you unmute yourself? I think she's here. Yeah, I see her name.
We can circle back at the end.
Moving on, Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Here.
Mr. Chardine. Mr. Chardine, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, great, thank you.
Yep.
City of Richmond, Miss Clark.
Here.
Mr. Bridewell. DRPT, Mr. Burrell.
Here.
Miss Dubinsky.
Here.
VDOT, Mr. Mann.
Here.
Mr. Riblet.
Here.
PRTC, Miss Torres. I'll circle back to Adrian in a minute. Miss Del Ross.
Here.
RMTA, Miss Dean.
Here.
Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Here.
And I'm going to circle back to New Kent County, Miss Leduc.
Nicole, she put into the chat that she's
Ah.
on, but can't, her mic's not working.
Okay, I see it now. Thanks, Todd. And then GRTC, Adrian, can you communicate with us? She might have technical difficulties as well. Todd, that concludes the roll call for attendance, and I can certify that we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Next item on the agenda is consideration of amendments to the action meeting agenda. Any known amendments, Chet?
No, sir.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to the next item, approval of the October 13th, 2020 CBTA TAC action meeting minutes. Those were distributed. Forget which day you sent them out, Chet, but has everybody had a chance to review? Does anybody have any corrections? Okay, hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Barb Smith.
A second.
Second. Amos.
you get the second, Nicole?
I think it was Nora.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and take the roll call for item number, I'm losing track. I think it's item number 2,
Correct.
approval of the October 13 meeting minutes. Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas.
Aye.
Henrico County, Mr. Yor.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Aye. Can you hear me, Nicole?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem. Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
And City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
That concludes the roll call for item number 2.
Mr. Chair, I see that Ms. Russell's joined us from Charles City.
Aye.
Ms.
Thank
Russell, would you like to cast your vote for item number 2, the approval of the October 13 meeting minutes?
Yes, please. Aye.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Ms. Russell. Moving on to the next item, public comment period. Do we have anybody that has indicated desire to provide public comment?
Todd, this is Nicole. I have not received anything via email.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Hearing none, next item, CVTA Tech Chairman's Report. I have nothing new to report other than there was a CVTA Finance Committee meeting this morning. It was both in person and virtual, held at RVA offices. So sure we'll hit on many of the items they discussed at this morning's meeting during the course of our agenda. Otherwise, I have nothing else to report. Next item, number 5 on the agenda, CVTA tax staff update. Chet, you'll cover this one.
Yes, sir. I don't have a whole lot new to share, just that the authority met on the 30th, as I think everybody on the call is aware. And it was a very successful meeting at the Henrico Training Center. We did have a special, a late addition to the agenda to approve $200,000 of the 15% regional transit funds for use by GRTC to develop the regional public transportation plan. It wasn't an allocation, it was just approval of the use of the funds. So once we have the mechanisms in place with VDOT and banking services and everything else that the Finance Committee is working on, those funds can be distributed to GRTC, or the request can be considered again, I guess, to GRTC to for the actual transfer. The Finance Committee is working on, as the chair mentioned, we met this morning, and between that and the meeting on October 14th, the Finance Committee is focusing on banking services and the MOA with VDOT for revenue transfers, and we'll have a discussion on that further later this afternoon with this group. The work group, there's a finance work group that is made up of finance directors and other leaders from each jurisdiction, and they are looking at the different options, the mechanisms themselves for how to best set up financial services and advising, and what types of existing processes there are between different jurisdictions. I am not an expert in this, so I'm thankful for the engagement of the finance directors, and they're advising the Finance Committee on options moving forward. There was a presentation this morning on kind of a next steps approach from a number of our jurisdictions to the Finance Committee, and discussed bringing a proposal to the authority for their meeting on December 4th. So we will be sure to, once we get a hands on a draft, we will make sure that this committee sees that as well. But I would also encourage, there's lots of different people engaged right now from every jurisdiction. So the more interaction there can be at the local level between between the technical staff, finance groups, and as well as legal counsel. We would encourage that. We're doing our best to share all the information that's changing hands, but we would encourage local coordination as well. I don't think I need to dive into anything else, Mr. Chair, unless there's other questions about previous activities.
No, thank you, Chet. Does anybody have any further follow-up questions or requests of Chet? And yes, I'll reemphasize the last point Chet made regarding just continued coordination and communication, because there's a lot of moving parts and pieces between legal, finance, and technical. So while Chad and his group are doing as much as they can for channeling those communications, it's easy to miss stuff. So if we can kind of be a backstop for those communications, that would be beneficial. And you know, Henrico County is as guilty as anybody in terms of sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, but we eventually get on the same page. So it's a big effort right now. So thank you. Next item 6 on the agenda: regional project prioritization and the Rtpo process introduction. Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. I'm going to try and share my screen again. Okay, can everybody see that? This is a presentation that was provided to the LRTP Advisory Committee, and I'm going to skip forward to the pertinent slides. So I wanted to give this group a kind of a preview, everybody that wasn't on the advisory committee, of what the TPO staff is developing for next steps on project prioritization for the long range plan. And this is pertinent because what we're talking about is hopefully something that can translate to project prioritization for the CVTA as well. And this is under task 4 of the long range plan process programming. And it really deals, this is what was in the scope for the long range plan that the advisory committee approved last year when we started this process. And it really develops project scoring, ranking, and prioritization methodology and guidelines based on performance measures. That's a requirement from Federal Highways to focus more on performance measures rather than any type of qualitative types of measures. So as much as we can, we're going to base it on data, prioritization based on data. The process here is that for the long range plan side, we are going to be developing this prioritization tools between now and I think the latest estimate was late March or early April for a couple of the measures. And those are dealing more with our travel demand model. And I can give you a little bit more detail on that in a few seconds. So just some background first. There's 4 different types of models that we looked at in terms of how to do project prioritization: goal-based subjective, goal-based qualitative, performance-based, and then some type of a hybrid pattern. So the goal-based subjective is what we use for our 2035 long-range plan. And it's based on mostly personal judgment. So a lot of qualitative based on experience of staff and local technical folks about how things were ranked and measured. So a point system, and it was really, as you can see, the second table there, or the first table, on what types of impacts a project might have. So is it important? Is it very important? Lots of kind of personal judgment based on how it should be ranked. The next type was goal-based qualitative, and this is what was used for the last long-range plan, the Plan 2040. It's really based on data converted to an index range, and it was based on current conditions. So what was found was that sometimes the higher scores goes to projects with better applications or more data or more details, rather than the actual impact of the project and what your project might mean. So there were scores for Plan 2040, and they were based on data in part, but I think what we want to look at next is some type of, we want to improve on that and be able to use data to make better informed decisions based on impacts. So performance-based is, the scores are based wholly on the performance of the project. And it's usually looking at the future year, the build out, and what the delta is between the no build condition, current day, and the future year, the horizon year. So this will be 2045 in our case. So project scoring for each project will be relative. This is the type of detail that is recommended by Federal Highways. And it's also what is used to develop the smart scale prioritization tools. What we found is that it is data hungry and it's very time consuming for staff and for analysis. And there are different methodologies for different types of projects. So a highway project would be measured differently than, say, a bike bed project or a transit project. So there's definitely some benefits and some drawbacks as well. So the final one is a hybrid of those, and this will be a combination of what was done in 2040 and the performance-based approach, which is what is recommended by Federal Highways right now. For our case, with a staff of 12 or 13, this is catered towards best use of our staff time and capacity, and also utilizing the consultant assistance that we have right now for our travel demand model. This is the direction that is being developed, and it uses 14 different metrics. 11 of those are performance-based, but there are also 3 other measures which kind of add some context to the performance-based data that is being developed. And then implementing a system of bonus points. Say, is it on the VTrans network? What's the project readiness, impacted economic zones, and other types of factors. So, and we can certainly pass this off to everyone if you haven't seen it yet. But the recommendations are that we would look at different goals like safety, mobility, equity, accessibility, economic development, environment, and land use. And each one of those would be developed in different ways. So the mobility goal, the equity and accessibility goal, and some of the environment and land use goals, as well as economic, would be developed through the travel demand model. This is something that we've been working on for a number of years now, and it's really rounding into shape. And those types of things the model will be able to be used to assess accessibility, both to jobs overall, as well as from an environmental justice standpoint, mobility, person throughput, and hours of delay, and then access to destinations as well. Those would all be able to be evaluated in the model. Safety is more of a GIS and Excel tool, which we are developing in coordination with the current federal performance measures that we already track, so that we can have some consistency over year. So we're confident that those are going to work out well. Economic development, we're looking at job growth through a GIS tool, and then truck throughput through the travel demand model. Again, looking at that delta between current day and the horizon year. And then environment and land use, it's a combination of GIS tools and model output. The model will continue to give us air pollution factors as well as VMT per capita. And then the environmental features through GIS analysis. We want to look at sensitive features, like a lot of folks do right now, looking at percentage of wetlands, water hazards, conservation lands, cultural resources. A lot of those data points that are readily accessible through GIS. And then we also want to look at with the, I believe it was 22 activity centers that were identified in the socioeconomic data report earlier this fall. We want to look at how connected projects are to those activity centers, whether services are provided to reach those activity centers, and then use those to develop additional metrics. We are working through right now with the advisory committee recommendations on vision goals and objectives. And a draft of those is here. It has been revised since these slides are put together. But as you can see, at the top are guiding principles for the system, and then the vision statement. Each goal, as I mentioned, safety, environment, land use, accessibility, equity, those are all listed on the left-hand column. The objectives to meet those goals are next to those. And then we have two columns on the right side that address the federal performance measures that we are required to address, and then performance measures that could be used in project selection. And this is the key point for this group is the project selection performance measures are something that we can measure year over year and provide some background and can be used methodologically to identify a prioritization for the universe of projects that we're considering in the long range plan. And that could, again, turn over to projects that could be prioritized for CVTA consideration as well. So at this point, this was presented to the advisory committee, and I believe we will have another meeting. I think the invitation came out this morning in December, and that's something that we will continue to work through with them. We do have a schedule. I don't have it in front of me for when each of these tools is expected to be finalized. A couple of those are being developed into our travel demand models. So that is, those may take a little bit longer than others, than the GIS tools, which we can develop in-house. So we will, we have encouraged the consultant to work as quickly as possible to help us out with providing these tools. And they understand that it's not just for the benefit of the long range plan, but it could be used for other purposes as well, like the CBTA. So I can take any questions, Todd, or we can move on if that's desirable.
And that'll be a good time to pause for questions.
Hey, Todd, this is Barb.
Yes, Barb.
Chet, who's the consultant working on this?
It's Coordino Group.
Okay.
They've been working with us on, I think, the past 3 model iterations. So they're very comfortable with what we're doing, and are doing some custom user interfaces for like the accessibility tool and some of the more specialized things that we're looking at now.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you'll be able to give this group a demo with some sample projects?
Yeah, I think so. I'll have to check back with Sulab and Coordino and see when the timing might work for that. But I think that'd be a great use for this group.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sure.
Other questions? Chet, so when is the next advisory group meeting? You said, I think December you have one?
Yeah, Nicole, do you have that in front of you?
I do. It's on Monday, not a Thursday. Monday, December 14th at 1 o'clock. So it's not at 9. Usually it's on a Thursday at 9. It's Monday, December 14th at 1.
Okay, and Chet, any kind of timeline on when you expect this to clear out of that group, and then I guess it goes on to full TPO attack at that point?
Yeah, I can look at the approval schedule. Not everybody may be aware, but the advisory committee is usually given the authority to guide the LRTP development. So I don't think there's a requirement for TAC and policy board approval of these steps, but we certainly want to provide it for information and questions to make sure that we're moving the right way. So I could certainly send this group an update on what that schedule looks like.
That would be helpful. I mean, while there's a lot of overlap between this group and that group, it's not uniform across everybody. on this group.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, unless there's any other questions or comments on the prioritization process. Next item on the agenda is number 7, Regional Public Transportation Plan Process Update. You'll kick it off, Chet.
Yeah, hang on one second. Yes, so there was a public transportation work group meeting, and I was not able to attend, but Nicole and Adrian were both in attendance, and the as well as a number of you. So I think there was some good back and forth with scope for the transportation plan and how that's moving forward. Anybody who wasn't able to tune into the October 30th meeting, the approval was given at that time, as I mentioned earlier today, for the funds to be used to help supplement this plan. And I think that GRTC is moving forward. I know that there were a number of comments that were submitted by the work group to Adrian. And with that, I'd be happy to turn it over to her to provide a more detailed update.
Yes. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Yeah, so Chet pretty much covered the highlights. In the transportation working group, we went over the proposals from the 2 consultants that we reached out to. They came from Baker, teaming up with Jarrett Walker and Associates, and Kimberly Horn, teaming up with Kinetics. We reviewed them in detail, and then I sent them out to the working group to provide comments. So thank you for those on the working group who did provide comments. We have met with Michael Baker to get some more details on the proposal, and I believe we are going to move forward with Baker and Jarrett Walker. So as soon as we get a timeline, I'll share that with this group as well as with the working group. Any questions?
Thank you, Adrian. Anything else to cover on that one, Chet?
Yes, sir.
All right. Oh, that went fast. Next item, number 8, Transit Service Governance Report and Draft Scope. Chet?
Yes. So we've discussed this, I believe, a couple of times now. And what I've included in your agenda packet, as well as what's on the screen, is, oh, I'm not sharing it. One second. Okay. This is the scope that everyone has been discussing. I have not changed it since the last time we sent it out, other than to update the first phase from November 30th to December 30th, given our time right now. So otherwise, there is nothing new in this. And I think the first thing we wanted to do was to see if the group had consensus to move forward with this scope as presented. The way that the timeline works out right now, this is probably the best place to talk about this. We do not have an authority meeting scheduled before December 1st, which was the time or the date given in the code for submittal of a transit governance report. But in coordination with VDOT, I'm confident that if we provide an update, even following the December 4th authority meeting, that will suffice. I did get confirmation this morning, actually, that approval of a letter providing an update to the governor and the General Assembly at our December 4th meeting of the authority would be sufficient to meet that December 1st deadline in the code. So as long as this group is okay moving forward with the scope as we presented and reviewed, we can put together a letter for consideration by the authority on December 4th that would then be submitted to the Governor and the General Assembly according to the guidelines set forth in the code. We did include that letter, a draft of that letter in your agenda packets. And we can talk about that at the appropriate time, Todd, but I guess does it make sense first to see if there's any concerns with the draft of the scope of services before we take the next steps?
Yes, let's cover that first, and then we can move on to the draft letter. So as Chet mentioned, this draft had been reviewed multiple times by the various attorneys and staff, and we just want to make sure everybody is good with this as it stands to recommend approval to the full body on the December agenda.
Todd, this is Barb.
Hi, Barb.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval so that we can move forward with this report. Approval by the authority.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Joe Bidunas. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Nicole, can you take a vote?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The committee will now be voting on item number 8, Town of Ashland. Ms. Amos. I'm going to circle back to no. Are you there?
Aye.
Thank you. Charles City County, Ms. Russell.
Aye.
Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
Aye.
Hanover County, Mr. Bidunas.
Aye.
Henrico County, Mr. Yor.
Aye.
New Kent County, Ms. Leduc.
Aye.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
Aye.
City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for item number 8.
Thank you, Nicole. So, Chet, we want to cover the draft letter now.
Yes, sir. Has everyone had a chance to review it? I mean, I could, if you want, I could read it. I've got it on the screen. It really gives a summary of what the code says that we have to do, and then talks about what the authority has done, and maybe the finer points. The CVTA has developed a scope of work for the governor's report and plans to utilize bench consultants approved by DRPT to assist with evaluation and development of the report. The scope of work is expected to be approved at the December 4th authority meeting, and the request for proposals is issued immediately thereafter. It's been developed in consultation with each member government, DRPT, VDOT, and GRTC, and will be the responsibility of the authority to complete. It talks about each phase in the report, phase 1 through 5, and that the final report will be delivered to the Governor and General Assembly by March 31st, 2021. And this would be signed by the authority chair, Mr. Thornton from Henrico.
Thank you. Any questions on the or comments on the draft letter? Here, no, I have one, Chet. So the final report date of March 31st, 2021. Did you get concurrence from the governor's office regarding that date is acceptable?
Yes, what I was told by the Secretary of Transportation's office was that this, as long as we had a final report in advance of the end of the fiscal year, that we would be okay. Obviously, they want it as quickly as possible, so that's why we chose kind of midway between where we are now and the end of June.
And also based on the draft scope of work and the schedule we're on, there's no concerns about the bench consultant be able to meet that target date and build in the approvals necessary for for finalizing the report?
I think as a former consultant, I think it makes sense. I do think that we can see what kind of proposals come in and see if there are major concerns, but I think the way it's written is fair, and with the edits that were done to the scope to remove some of the sections, I think what's there is sufficient.
And I haven't had a chance to check the calendar. Do we have a full CVTA board meeting prior, I guess in between the January 29th date and the March 31st date for the final report for them to approve?
We should. We don't have our meeting scheduled out that far, but we are working on that. So we can make every intention that that's a reason why there should be a meeting.
Todd, this is Diana.
Yes, Diana.
I know when I spoke with Delegate McQuinn, and I just wanted to share, she asked the question, did we think that we needed an amendment to the legislation for the time frame?
I've been in discussions with Nick Donahue and Ronick Day, and they didn't. I haven't heard anything to that effect from their side.
Yeah, and it wasn't. I told her about the letter, and so it wasn't that. It was just to ensure that we're comfortable with the letter, and that it's going to be sufficient. Or did we feel like we needed to do anything more? But it sounds like you're saying that everything is sufficient. Based on your conversations with the Secretary's office?
That's right, yes.
So I guess our safety net is that once the consultant starts, if we find out that it's going to be difficult to meet that final report deadline, that to your earlier point, Chet, we have till July 1 to submit.
Yes, I think that's correct. I didn't really push hard on that, but I think that's the understanding.
Hey, Todd.
Yes, Barb.
We had asked that a follow-up be made to the Secretary's office about the final report deadline, and to try to be sure that that's sort of a soft target date. You know, the final report is anticipated to be delivered by March 31st, so that there is some flexibility. Depending on what comes out of the report, there may be a lot of discussion, and we don't want to be caught trying to meet this deadline that seems in this letter to be pretty absolute. Do you think you can revise that to be a little
softer? Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
And maybe if you've gotten direction that says no later than June 30th or whatever.
Actually, I like that last suggested language. If we have confirmation that July 1 is the deadline, and we can say no later than. And also, Chet, I know you don't have the meetings for the CVTA beyond January set at this point, but it may be relevant to acknowledge somewhere in the draft letter that that it will require CVTA approval prior to the final report being issued.
Okay.
Hey, Todd.
Yes, Jennifer.
For what it's worth, we have an annual transit report that's due to the General Assembly on November 1st. It is November 9th, and I can tell you that our report hasn't been submitted. I say that to put your mind at ease a little bit. I think it's pending review at the Secretary's office, but I do think that there's an understanding that, you know, these things take time, and while we always try to hit those dates, sometimes we don't, and for good reason. So I agree with the recommendation that you put the hard date at the end of the fiscal year, like the Secretary's office recommended, and maybe give yourself some wiggle room.
I think that's great. I might suggest that maybe under that last bullet point there, phase 5, maybe we could just say final report issued anticipated March 31st, 2021. And then final report, as Barb mentioned, no later than the June 30th date in that number 4. So you sort of have, we're anticipating to get it in by the end of March, but, you give yourself the wiggle room that we all think is necessary, but just a suggestion.
This is Diana.
Yes,
Yes, I agree with Eric. I think that showing the March 31st really shows that, we're setting targets, and then the wiggle room at the end kind of says, but, here's really the end date that we will get it to you.
And that actually may also help with the consultants, product delivery as well. I mean, we want to make sure they do a thorough job, but we also want to make sure that they get stuff to the localities and the agencies in a timely fashion. So there's plenty of time to vet that with each of the groups before going back to the CVTA, because I would anticipate many of the localities are going to have a strong interest in the outcome of this report as well.
So if I can clarify, so the item 4, as Barb suggested, will be softened, and we'll put in some no later than June language. What was the other suggestion, to change phase 5, or just leave it as is with March 31st?
Well, I would just suggest phase 5, it read final report issued, and then in the paren, anticipated March 31st, 2021.
Okay.
So you just insert the word anticipated there. And then the number 4, paragraph 4 would read something like the final report will be delivered to the Governor and General Assembly no later than June 30, 2021.
Gotcha.
Unless somebody has, a better way to phrase that, I'm fine.
Eric, this is Todd. Is there any benefit or value in putting in reference to the fact that the CVTA board will need to approve for the final report prior to submission, which?
Well, yeah, we could put in there final report issued, and then in the paren, anticipated March 31, 2021, comma, pending CVTA approval.
It's in the scope.
It's in the scope, okay.
But it's not in the letter, so we can certainly clarify that in the letter too.
Or you could say the final report, pending CVTA approval, the final report will be delivered to the Governor and General Assembly no later than June 30, 2021.
I think it is understood that it's going to be approved by the CVTA because they're the ones submitting it.
Yeah, I think so. And if it's in the scope, I think you're right, Barb.
Do you have the direction you need, Chet, or you need further discussion?
We're good. I think I understand.
Very well. Okay, so we need no action on that. We already took action on the draft scope, so we're ready to move on to number 9.
Do we want to recommend the letter?
Oh, okay. Just want to.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. Do we just want to do that by consensus?
Sure.
All right. Everybody good with it? If not, speak now. Tom gave us an electronic thumbs up. Impressive. I don't think I know how to do that on here. So did Barb. All right. So I think we're good on that then, Chet?
Yes, I think so.
Very good. So next item, agreement for revenue transfers with VDOT, specifically the supplements, which was added to the CVTA Finance Committee meeting this morning for discussion. And we'll probably want to talk about that a little bit here, to update everybody on the status of the agreement and the supplements that go with it. So Chet, I'll let you kick it off.
Sure, and we could borrow some time from item 8 for this one.
If needed, yeah.
Trying to, okay. If we wanted to go straight to the SBA, I think, can everybody see that on the screen? So at the authority meeting, there was approval of the MOA, the front part of the VDOT agreement. And we have had numerous discussions with VDOT after that meeting, and understand now that the process is that there would be an item put on the CTB's agenda for approval of this agreement. VDOT is not interested in piecemealing it and putting separate components of the agreement, for example, the MOA that the authority approved, before anything else is ready. So the suggestion is to put together, to have agreement on the MOA as well as the 2 exhibits, and move that forward as a block for CTB approval. The Finance Committee this morning, I think pretty strongly reiterated that they want to move forward and have this finished, so that the authority can move on with its business and start to accept the revenues later this month or early December as they come in. The discussion this morning at the Finance Committee, I think, concluded with an understanding that this body, the technical committee, was going to consider possible changes to the SBA and hopefully make a recommendation coming out of today for consideration by the authority at their December meeting. So that's the task in front of us. There were suggestions that were submitted and shared, and that's what I have on the screen. And we're joined by Eric Gregory, who's providing legal counsel, not just for the TPO, but also for the CBTA. If there's anything else that we need to think about before jumping into this, Eric, we can go through each item, and we can talk about the additions or deletions and what the impacts are. We also have, for this group's information, we have some sample documents from SPAs from Hampton Roads. And so we can look at those if the group would desire to see what theirs looks like. We don't have the blank one, but we have a sample project SPA that we can look at that at least gives the framework for how their agreement is set up.
So Chet, before we jump into specifics, can either you or Eric give a quick overview of what reviews have occurred with this document and what we know about the origin of this draft SAP versus Hampton Roads and Northern Virginia, because I think there's been some contradictory information out there, or people either misunderstood or are not fully clear on what how this document was drafted, what it was based on, and how close it is to those authorities' documents.
So VDOT, legal counsel for VDOT, prepared the MOA and the SPA and the other attachment, the funding report model thing that we're not really discussing today. Both of those, and submitted those a couple of months ago, and we began reviewing them. They were circulated to legal counsel for the authorities. Their input was requested. I believe that the TAC got those some time ago. The immediate focus was on the MOA. We requested certain revisions and everything, and I think the MOA is pretty well squared away. And that was one reason why the CVTA wanted to go ahead and take action on that, which they did last Friday. The SPA was sort of the next step, and that started getting scrutiny. And there were several iterations. One was issued back in September, and then we had another one in around, early September. Then we had another one September 18th. And then the most recent draft is dated October 27th. And that draft was from, again, the VDOT legal counsel at the Attorney General's office. And what they said was they based the SPA on the HR TAC model, the HR TAC SPA, but they made significant changes because they weren't really happy. This is basically what they said. They weren't really happy with where that was, or they wanted to make some improvements. So they did that, and they sent us the SPA, and we circulated this most recent draft as soon as we got it to local legal counsel and requested input on that. And I believe Chet circulated that to the TAC around that same time. Anyway, that's how we got where we are today. Going forward, considering the tight timeline that we're working on, with the idea that the CVTA and the CTB would be taking action on the MOA as a package, inclusive of the SPA and the other exhibits, in December, we really need to get the SPA resolved one way or the other. If we can't, then that would have to wait until I don't know when, perhaps January or maybe even March. I don't know what the CTB meeting timeline is. But the CTB via Carlos Brown did today say that they would be willing. Typically, they consider items at a workshop, at one meeting where they workshop and discuss it and get everything copacetic, and then they take action on it at a following meeting. Depending on how this shakes out, Mr. Brown suggested that they'd be willing to alter that usual course and take it up in workshop form, and then also take action on it at the same CTB meeting, which I believe is scheduled for December 9th. Is that right, Chet?
Not sure. We can check.
I think it's December 9th, but I could be wrong. Thereabouts anyway. I know it's after, shortly after the CVTA meeting.
Yes, sir. Actually, I checked the date. It's next CTP meetings are December 8 and December 9, I believe.
So is December 8th the workshop and 9th is the meeting? Do they do the workshop a month in advance of action at a meeting?
Yes, they usually workshop it at month one, and then they take action month two. I presume that the 8th maybe is the workshop this month, but whatever items they workshop on the 8th, per their usual schedule, it's my understanding they wouldn't take action on those items on the 9th. They would push those items off for action the following month or whatever the next meeting is. But what we heard today was they would be willing potentially to workshop it either on the 8th or the 9th or whatever, basically consolidate that timeline and workshop it, consolidate it in December, or workshop it and take action on it in December. Okay, yeah, Nicole's saying the 8th is the workshop.
Thank you, Nicole. And Eric, if you could also clarify the language in the code gives us the flexibility of still moving forward once we have the mechanisms in place with receiving revenues without having this as an approved item.
Yeah, the statute, I don't have the chapter and verse citation off the top of my head, but the act does allow for the CVTA to requisition payments from the CVTA funds from VDOT, whether an MOA is in place or not. And so that's, I'll find that. I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to make everybody sit here and wait for me to go through the act, but it's in there. I want to give you a cite, but I can't do that right this second. I'll get it to you in a moment.
That's fine. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just figured you had all this stuff committed to memory. So.
I wish I did.
So I think while it's certainly desirable and the goal of certainly we heard from the Finance Committee to get this this agreement tweaked and approved by everybody so it can go to the full CVTA on December 4th and then to the CTB on the 8th and the 9th. It's not absolutely necessary in order to have the revenues in place and funding distributed. So with that, because it's a very important document and so makes a lot of important decisions on projects and funding for projects. So with that said, Chet, we want to kind of go over some of the edits with it, and unless anybody has questions.
I've got a question, Todd. This is Barb.
Yes, Barb.
On the screen, the document is dated September 18th, but I thought I heard Eric saying there was something different submitted on October 27th. Is this?
Could you repeat that, Barb?
The document that's on the screen right now has a September 18th date.
Yeah, it does. And that's one reason why I mentioned the October 27th version, because that was distributed, obviously, the September 18th. This particular version that's on screen is a prior version. I don't think the changes were all that significant, but there is an October 27th version, which was circulated to local legal counsel and I believe to the TAC some time ago, or at least 2 weeks ago when we got it. But that's where we are. I can recirculate it to you if you would like.
Right, and that's been a little bit of a challenge with the project agreement is we did get it pretty late before the CVTA October meeting. And, so we are feeling like we're trying to play catch up to review the thing and make comments on it. And now it sounds like maybe the review has been on a older version.
Well, the further concern that at least I have is that, there's been a lot of documents forwarded to legal counsels for review. So I advised my county attorney, based on what we knew a week or so ago, that this agreement was going to proceed on a different timeline than the MOE, that I told them don't prioritize this, get everything else done, and then come back to this over the next couple of weeks. So they moved it off their priority list, and now we're being told that not only do we need to move it back, but it needs to be super prioritized. So
which is contradictory to the language that was in the draft MOA,
right,
which indicated that it could be approved at a later date.
Right. So I guess that's one of our issues and concerns that we need to figure out how to work through, and as well as what the collective concerns or changes we'd like to see in this agreement.
So what's on the screen is what was provided to me this morning that has the comments in line. I understand that I guess it's not with the newest version, but this is what we have in terms of things to discuss. So is this a starting point, or do we want to go through the latest version? And
No, I would suggest we go ahead and work with this one. And I can point out some things along the way that differ, but it's not major, but it may impact the discussion. But anyway, let's go ahead and work with what you have there.
okay. Todd, do you want me to walk through this? I'm not sure I've seen all the content yet.
You're welcome to start to roll through it, and many of these came from Barb. So Barb, if you want to kind of not line by line, but kind of hit the major issues of what y'all see, since you've, I guess, Chesterfield's reviewed this probably in more detail than most jurisdictions at this point.
Chad, would you like me to give an overview?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, most of the changes that I've recommended in the markup have to do with changing the agreement to include advance payments for project administration to it being a reimbursement only agreement, which is similar to how localities administer VDOT funded projects. So most of the markup has to do with getting it comparable to a reimbursement arrangement using similar terms and conditions that are in the locally administered project agreements that a lot of us are familiar with. From a big picture standpoint, also in the agreement, they reference a CVTA executive director. I may change those references to just the CVTA in general. Another issue has to do with the expenditure of funds. There are some sections in the agreement, and if we can scan to some of that, let's see, that's. I'm getting to it, I think. I'm sorry. Okay, in Article 9, number 5A, no 4A. There's discussion about if the cost for the project will result in a significant reduction. There's going to be some proration share of the reduction in cost. And that references CVTA revenues and state or federal revenue. I would suggest that we instead say something along the lines that every effort will be made to spend federal funds first, followed by state funds, reserving CVTA for spending last. With locally administered projects, it's the way that we typically handle those. Then last but not least, just thinking about this agreement at a high level, Appendix A at the end just references project. It seems like this document could be where we define the project scope, schedule, and budget. The schedule could be a high level, all of this being pretty high level, schedule being a high level, milestone, completion date, listing, from project scoping meeting, survey, to the environmental work, the citizen involvement, utility relocations, right-of-way acquisition. Just hitting the high-level milestones that are typical in project development. And then again, a high-level budget, but not necessarily just PE right-of-way, utilities, construction, but broken up a little bit into smaller pieces so that it's easier to review that budget with VDOT and make adjustments if it seems like we're not on the same page. The Appendix B, this is in the original agreement labeled project budget and project schedules. This might be a good place to insert something that looks like what we're familiar with the locally administered projects as Appendix A, where we're discussing the estimate, revenue, and reimbursement, and it's got consideration to cash flow. So a similar format as an Appendix A from a LAP agreement. And that's really the high level. Well, if you get to the next item, Appendix C, the attachment that follows that cover letter includes a detailed pay-go request, which seems to apply to the advanced funding scenario. And if we're working off of reimbursement only, I think we would just need to keep that second table listing of attached invoices. So generally, that's the high level review and comments from Chesterfield.
Thank you, Barb. So we're getting out of my my comfort zone with respect to some of the financial stuff, but with respect to the cash flow and the pay-go that's included, I noticed in the example that we've looked at from Hampton Roads, pay-go can be used for both reimbursement and advance payment for projects, is if I understand correctly. And I know that it is the priority of the CVTA to use pay-go as much as we can to avoid debt financing wherever possible, except for when we get into very large projects that we will require that. So I guess that's one question that I think I still have is the Hampton Roads model, which it sounds like we're most closely potentially following, does their agreement does allow for reimbursement as well as front end for financing, correct?
I don't really know, but when I read this agreement, there were places where it seemed to be talking about reimbursement and other places that seemed to be talking about advance payment. So it wasn't really clear if it was one or the other or applied to both scenarios. And so it very well could apply to both scenarios.
So I guess that's one question that we have, and if that's something that either Chet or Eric or maybe Jennifer or Shane or Mark, if y'all know how that arrangement works within Hampton Roads between VDOT and HR Tech.
We could definitely check. If Chet, you want to check with HR TAC, I can check with VDOT legal counsel on that. If you look at the Appendix C form of payment requisition, it does refer to payment or reimbursement. So I think it does work both ways, but again, we can double check.
It would be nice to know when Hampton Roads or Nova uses the two different scenarios. Like, when do you decide to use advance funding and when do you decide to use reimbursement?
I think that's an important question. I mean, certainly for maybe smaller budget projects that reimbursement would be reasonable if VDOT was administering the project just like it is with locally administered projects. But I guess questions would get into when you're getting into very large scale projects, much as many of the Hampton Roads projects are. How much of that is reimbursed versus financed with advanced payment, either in phases? How do any of those mechanics work? And as we sit here, I don't know those answers, and I think we want as much flexibility as we can, because we will have a wide range of projects in terms of budgets and schedules. And obviously, we don't want to tell VDOT to go build a $200 million project and tell them, well, you have to front the full 200 million and we'll reimburse you. So how do we make it work on both ends?
Well, it is important to note, even with a $200 million project, whoever's administering the project is just floating a loan for 30 to 60 days as they get reimbursed. So it's not like you're fronting $2 million.
Right.
Or $200 million.
200 million, yes. And you touch on it briefly, Barb, with respect to I forget which page it was, but one of your early comments when you started your review with the group is if there was excess funding, but you also have the other extreme, if the project is short, there's a shortfall in funding. So whose responsibility is it to cover the difference?
Right.
So as the draft reads, I believe it is basically if it has both federal, state, and CVTA money, that the difference would be made up based on the proportional contribution of funding from each funding source, correct?
That's what the original says, right? Which is up on the screen.
Yeah.
And I provided a revision to that.
Yeah, that's I'm glad we came back to this point. The October 27th version completely eliminates that recital paragraph.
Well, that's good.
So, that's gone. So I don't know if you want to include that additional language, but the original recital paragraph is gone.
Okay. What does it say about overruns, Eric?
It just eliminates that recital paragraph in its entirety. I believe the overruns. Let's see. I'm looking for that.
So Todd?
Yes, Barb.
From my perspective, I don't feel like the CVTA TAC today at this meeting is going to be able to necessarily resolve the revisions needed for this agreement. I think it's going to be something that we need to go back and forth on a little bit.
I don't disagree, especially in light of the fact that we have two different versions out there that I'm not sure how much our various legal counsels and our technical staff have reviewed the October 27th revision, which does sound like it has some substantive changes in it. So I guess I don't know. I'll look to the group for any input on how we want to move forward with respect to a timely review from everybody, including our legal counsels, and then have plenty of time to get this back to VDOT legal counsel for further review on our edits prior to going to CVTA beginning of December and hopefully meeting CTB if we can get to that point.
This is Diana.
Yes, Diana.
I know during the meeting today, the Finance Committee meeting, VDOT said that they had not received any additional edits from us. So I just wanted to clarify what exactly, if anything, has gone back to VDOT in regard to this file.
Nothing yet. Nothing yet. We circulated it. I've been awaiting input from local legal counsel, and haven't sent them any revisions to the SPA yet. I haven't gotten direction to do so. So I'm waiting on input.
Mm-hmm. So I would just add then that I think that it's important that I know they talked about, substantial differences versus maybe it would be something that they could approve. So I just don't know, how we can get to a point where we can get them something to review. So it sounds like Barb and Todd says that staff needs additional time, and then each of our legal need time to review. Is that something where we can make a timeline and try to get a draft version over to VDOT at least for consideration? Because I think it has like very, very, specific points to it. It's either going to be advanced funding or reimbursement, and or whether we agree that there's a mixture of both. It looks like, the federal funding spin down and state funding spin down versus the CVTA. And then just again, some of the language that's used in there. And maybe I forgot, Barb, one more point, but with those really being the things in which we've come up with thus far, maybe even a continuing list of what it is, so that we can at least begin to gauge whether or not they're going to consider it or not. But, that's just my opinion.
Yes, Barb.
Maybe what we could do is in the next 2 weeks, well, maybe in the next week, we review this localities and local legal review, put together comments. And if we could call a special meeting of the CVTA TAC to resolve those comments by the 11/20, which is a Friday. We could have a meeting to discuss the comments, and then the following week get VDOT the agreed upon version by TAC, so that VDOT could react to that, send us comments back a week before the authority meeting. I don't know, would that work? That might not work.
No, I mean, I think it's a good idea to have a special TAC meeting to fine tune the SPA and give it another read. To push the ball forward, I might suggest that we go ahead and share. I mean, you all have the October 27th version from VDOT. It was distributed on the 28th, and also to the legal counsel, I think on the 27th or the 28th. So you all have that. You all can continue to work on that. To push the ball forward, though, I would be happy to take what Barb has shared, because I think these suggested changes provide a good conversation starter and with them. And we have some fundamental questions about the spend down and the reimbursement and or advance payment. And then some of the other sort of minor tweaks about the executive director versus the CVTA. And I don't think those are a big deal. But just to get something to VDOT, to get them moving on things, not VDOT per se, but their legal counsel, to get their response, so we can at least have some back and forth, because we're going to need to know what their response is to some of these changes, to see whether we're going to get traction on them or not. And if we wait much longer, I'm afraid that even if we have a special meeting on the 20th, we're going to run out of time before the December 4th meeting. So I'd really like to be empowered to go to VDOT with these and say, hey, look, this is what we're thinking. What is your response to some of these draft changes? And then, by the way, ask them for clarification on some of these issues.
I like that approach. I'm welcome to hear others' opinions.
Even what you're showing on the screen isn't my latest revision to the agreement.
Well, if you're comfortable, send it, man, because the more I can go back to VDOT with, the more I have in my hand to advocate for changes here, the more I can get. So if you can send me, whatever else you've got, if it's okay with everyone, then please do so, because I want to be able to push back against them a little bit, and if I have more, then that's better.
Well, I'll take some time when I can do it. I'll do it as soon as I can and look at the October 27th version to make sure, transfer my comments from this old version into the 27th version and send you that, so we can just throw away the September version.
So Barb, just to clarify, so you're okay with the agreement if it allows either advance pay or reimbursement, which I guess would be decided on a project by project basis, as opposed to just being reimbursement? Or
yeah, I'm all right with either option. We will, it's hard for me to wrap my head around a advance payment scenario. I think that's just because I'm not thinking big enough.
I think that's where any advice and explanation we can get from Hampton Roads in particular that Chet's going to be able to follow up on would be helpful, because we don't have the experience with that type of project financing and delivery. So they've been doing it, so why not ask the people that have been doing it? So how quickly Chet can do that and communicate back to this group in some form, I guess, is a question.
Sure, I'll work on it this afternoon.
Just some additional food for thought. Obviously, I think there are scenarios that would require both advance payment and reimbursement. So, I think both of those mechanisms are going to be important to include here, and I think that's why they are. The other comments we got, let's see, bear with me here. about the spend down. I might follow up with you, Barb, on that about utilizing the Fed and state funds prior to CVTA funds. But I might want some additional input on that. But
Sure.
So your suggestion for following that approach, Barb, is based on the way it is with locally administered projects?
Yes, right. So the revisions that I've made to the September 18th document were to make it consistent with a reimbursement model that we're familiar with LAP projects. Similar terms and conditions, similar Appendix A, that kind of stuff.
Understood, and that's where some maybe more clarity on how the other authorities do that might be helpful to us.
Todd, this is Dirana.
Yes, Darana.
I know Eric talked about having the project example from Hampton Roads earlier in the conversation. Was that project a advanced funding or reimbursement base? Could you tell?
that was Chet mentioned that. I think he got
sorry.
something. That's okay. I think he got something from HR TAC earlier. Chet, you want to?
I can open it up and look real quick. I don't. Let me check.
Is that the one you forwarded shortly?
Yeah, the Bowers Hill interchange project.
Yeah, what I looked in that one, it was shown as PAYGO, but I could not tell if it was reimbursement versus advanced pay, because PAYGO can go either way.
And was the appendix, this is Dirana, was the appendix similar to what they submitted to us? I mean, what their draft they submitted for CVTA, or was it different?
The Appendix B was project budget, project schedule, and cash flow, whereas whatever version we had up on the screen earlier just said project budget and schedule.
Yeah. And Barb, didn't you say cash flow was more what we were used to seeing as well?
I put cash flow into an Appendix A type of thing, you know, like we're used to with LAP projects. So something to note is that even the October 27th SPA that we got doesn't have anything in the Appendix A or B. You know, no sort of structure. It's just a blank page with a header.
Todd, this is Dirana. So maybe Eric, we request during that back and forth that they provide something for the appendices.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I know. I'll note that Todd mentioned the Appendix A in the sample agreements that we got, or the example agreements we got from HR TAC earlier, that they do have the Appendix A, and that one is a narrative, provides a narrative description of the standard project services. So a brief description of the project scope, and then it's pretty slim. But the Appendix B is pretty detailed with regard to the funding. So yeah, I'll ask them to provide that. Sure.
Yeah, because the version we have, I'm looking at, is, like Barb said, is blank pages.
Yeah.
For A and B, so it's kind of hard for us to approve that.
Yep, gotcha.
But Appendix C, they do have the form of payment requisition, and that is populated, including detailed PAYGO request. So.
Yep.
So sounds like we have some follow-up efforts to do. How do we get this done concisely and timely and back out for review?
If the TAC could consider a motion to authorize me to confer with legal counsel for VDOT with regard to the draft changes that have been submitted to me and that have been discussed today, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, I don't know how to put that in a concise motion, but I'll defer to the group.
Hey, Todd,
Yes, Barb.
I'll try to get something to Eric based on the October 27th version that includes both options and has sort of a framework for Appendix A and Appendix B.
Okay, and then do we need action to authorize Eric to follow up with VDOT on that, or can we do that by consensus?
I go with consensus.
I think so.
Okay, as long as everybody's okay with me doing that, I just want to make sure everybody is cool with that.
All right, we'll ask one last time. Anybody have any issues or concerns with that process? Hearing none, you've got it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And then, so once you get that information, you're going to pass it back through the TAC members?
Yeah, I'll give it to the TAC, and depending on what you all want me to do, I can share with your local legal counsel, but I think sharing it directly with you all first will be my go-to.
I think sharing with us first is good because I think these larger overarching points need to really be vetted through us. And then once we're in agreement that, we're okay with it, then that's when we'll let you at that point notify you to send it through to all the legal counsel, and we can communicate with our respective legal counsels.
Well, the only danger there is, I'll be frank, Todd, and I don't want anybody to take offense to this, least of all my brethren in the local counsel's office. But whenever you put it into the lawyer's hands, they always tend to have further revisions. So just bear in mind that that's why I've been trying to give it to them. As soon as I get stuff, I'll give it to them, or I'll seek their input. Because it's, I want their consideration to be on the same track. But you're right. I think, you all are providing the policy direction. So I guess what I'd ask is for you all just to talk with your legal counsel and let them know what our steps going forward will be, and that they'll be apprised as much as they can.
Understood. And I think we can make that commitment.
Okay. Thank you.
What I don't want them to do is you send something out concurrent when you're sending it to us, and they start reviewing it, and we say, well, wait, we want to, from a policy standpoint, we want to go this way versus that way, and then they're spinning on their heels. So
yeah, I understand. It's okay.
Okay, so everybody good with that approach? All right, Chet, would you like to weigh in on what your thoughts are on keeping this ball moving forward?
I think sounds like the approach is good. I would remind everybody that we're dealing with the Thanksgiving week ahead of the December 4th meeting. Right now, the agendas are scheduled to go out on the 24th. So any decision by this group should probably be made by Friday before. I mean, that's not much time.
Yeah, can we have that special meeting on the 20th?
I think we'll do whatever it takes.
If we need a special meeting on the 20th to get concurrence from TAC and wrap everything up, that's fine. I can clear my calendar.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. We could send out a couple times on the 20th, or folks can say if they're available in the morning or afternoon now. But I think that, yeah, that's the next step.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good all day. This Diana.
Can anybody not do the morning of the 20th?
I'm available. Barb.
Okay.
Do we need to do roll call availability?
That might help, just to make sure people are still awake.
Okay, Nicole, are you still awake?
I am. I'm here, wide awake.
Okay, so I guess we'll go down the list and make sure most everybody is available for special call TAC meeting on the morning of Friday, November 20th. Do we have a preferred start time, Chet? 9 a.m.?
Chair's discretion.
Okay, I'll start with Town of Ashland. Miss Amos.
I'm available.
Charles City County, Miss Russell.
I have a 9:30 Central Virginia broadband meeting that day. So if it's a short meeting, that's fine because both would be virtual. Excuse me.
Okay, Chesterfield County, Miss Smith.
I'm available 8:30 on.
Miss Walker. I don't know, do we want to go through alternates or should I just poll the members?
Just poll the members is fine.
Okay, Goochland County, Mr. Coleman.
I'm available.
Hanover County, Mr. Vidunas.
I can do it.
Henrico County, Mr. Yor.
I'm available.
New Kent County, Miss Leduc.
I'm available too.
Powhatan County, Mr. Pompey.
I'm available that day.
City of Richmond, Miss Clark.
I'm available.
DRPT, Mr. Brule. VDOT, Mr. Mann.
Available.
GRTC, Ms. Torres. RMTA, Ms. Dean.
I'm available.
And Plan RBA, Mr. Parsons.
I am available.
So,
Sounds like 8:30. Does that work?
8:30 works for me.
Works for me.
Although I was hoping we'd go to 9 and just for the sake of Miss Russell have a very quick meeting, but 8:30 just to be safe.
I can provide coffee.
Virtual coffee. Okay, so everybody good on next steps on that one, and we everybody works to do what they need to do in order to get hopefully this squared away prior to the 20th.
Yes, I do have one update. Since we started discussing that item, I have some clarification because I'm all about providing ready updates. HR TAC does not do advanced funding, except in the case of their design build big project that was just broken ground the other day. So they pay VDOT 5 days ahead of VDOT paying the contractor. So I don't know if that helps.
So wait, the last thing you said is they pay 5 days ahead of VDOT paying the contractor?
Yes,
On design build.
correct.
Okay. And then everything else is full reimbursement, just like locally administered projects.
Right.
Okay, so therefore the base agreement that they sent us, as long as that does not, the language doesn't change from the HR TAC agreement, then that should accomplish one of the main priorities you were looking to do, Barb. But we'll double check. Okay, so I think we have covered this item adequately, unless anybody else has any additional comments, concerns, questions. Okay, hearing none, going on tonight, item 10, CVTA TAC member comments. Anybody have anything left to say? Okay, hearing no comments, then next item is the next meeting, which now has been, that date has been changed because we have the special call TAC meeting on the 20th at 8:30. Chad, are you going to send out a meeting notice for that one?
We will, yes.
Thank you. And then we'll still keep our December meeting for the 7th.
I think for now, I mean, there'll be something to talk about.
I was gonna say, do we know what what the focus of that meeting will be?
It may be transit governance.
Okay. We'll be anxiously awaiting the agenda. Unless there's anything else, then we can adjourn. Hearing nothing, everybody have a good